Welcome back to the book of Genesis. Let's continue reading with chapter 30 of Genesis. Now when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said to Jacob, "Give me children or else I die." And Jacob's anger was aroused against Rachel, and he said, "Am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?" So she said, "Here is my maid Bilhah. Go into her, and she will bear a child on my knees, that I will also have children by her." Then she gave him Bilhah, her maid, as wife, and Jacob went into her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Then Rachel said, "God has heard my voice and given me a son." Therefore she called his name Dan. And Rachel's maid Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, "With great wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, and indeed I have prevailed." So she called his name Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had stopped bearing, she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her to Jacob as wife. And Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a son. And Leah said, a troop comes." She called his name Gad. And Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a son. And Leah said, "I am happy, for the daughters will call me blessed." So she called his name Asher. Now Reuben went in days of wheat harvest and found mandrake in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. When Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." But she said to her, "It is small matter that you have taken away my husband. Would you take away my son's mandrakes also?" And Rachel said, "Therefore he will lie with you tonight for your son's mandrakes." When Jacob came out of the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must come into me, for I have surely hired you with my son's mandrakes." And he lay with her that night. Verse 17. And God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. Leah said, "God has given me my hire, because I have given my maid to my husband." So she called his name Issachar. Then Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. And Leah said, "God has endowed me with a good endowment. Now my husband will dwell with me, because I have borne him six sons." She called his name Zebulun. Verse 21. Afterwards she bore a daughter and called her name Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb. And she conceived and bore a son, and said, "God has taken away my reproach." So she called his name Joseph. And she said, "The Lord shall add me another son." Jacob's agreement with Laban. Verse 25. And it came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away, that I may go to my own place and to my country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, and let me go, for you know my service which I have done for you." And Laban said to him, "Please stay, if I have found favor in your eyes, for I have learned my experience that the Lord has blessed me for your sake." Then he said, "Name me your wages, and I will give it." And Jacob said to him, "You know that I have served you, and now your livestock have been with me." Verse 30. For what you had before I came was little, and it is now increased to a great amount. The Lord has blessed you since my coming, and now when shall I also prove for my own house? So he said, "What shall I give you And Jacob said, "You shall not give me anything. If you will do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep your flocks." Verse 32, "Let me pass through all of your flocks today, removing from there all the speckled and spotted sheep, and all the brown ones among the lambs, and the spotted and speckled among the goats. And these shall be my wages. So my righteousness will answer for me in time to come. When the subject of my wages comes before you, everyone that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and brown among the lambs will be considered stolen if it is with me." And Laban said, "Oh, that is what according to your word." So he removed that day the male goats that were speckled and spotted, all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had some white in it, and all the brown ones among the lambs, and gave them to the hands of his sons. Verse 36, "Then he put 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob, and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. Now Jacob took for himself rods of green poplar and of the almond and chestnut trees, peeled with stripes in them, and exposed the white which was in the rods. And the rods which he had peeled he set before the flocks in the gutters and the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink, so that they would conceive when they came to drink. So the flocks conceived for the rods. The flocks brought forth streaked, speckled, and spotted." Verse 40, "Then Jacob separated the lambs and made the flocks face towards the streaked, and all the brown in the flocks of Laban. But he put his own flocks by themselves, and did not put them with Laban's flock." Verse 41, "And it came to pass, whenever the stronger livestock conceived, that Jacob placed the rods before the eyes of the livestock in the gutters, and that they might conceive among the rocks." The rod. Verse 42, "But when the flocks were feeble, he did not put them in, so the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. Thus the man became exceedingly prosperous, and had large flocks, female and male, servants, and camels and donkeys." And that is the end of verse 30, and I really struggled with this. And a lot of this didn't really make much sense to me about the flocks and the rods and all of that. But I know there's something that's all going to tie together here. So going back to the beginning, we see that Rachel finally conceives, and we see Joseph is born. And much of Genesis, the rest of Genesis, is going to be about Joseph. As I mentioned, Joseph is going to be a beautiful picture of Jesus Christ. And we see that right here. So we see verse 24. "So she called his name Joseph, and said, 'The Lord shall add to me another son.' She was completely barren, and then God opened up her womb, and she begot Joseph. And Joseph is going to be the chosen one here. Many of his sons. So we will continue reading chapter 31 next time. These are pretty long chapters, and I am struggling with a lot of this, but I do the best I can with it. So that is it for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, and we will be back with chapter 31 next time. Thanks for watching. God bless.